All vehicles with manual transmissions or transaxles use a manual clutch to smoothly connect and disconnect the engine from the transmission. When the driver pushes down the clutch pedal, the clutch disengages. This disconnects the transmission from the engine. When the clutch pedal is raised, the engine and transmission are gradually engaged, allowing a smooth application of power to the driving wheels. This action is required because the torque of the engine must gradually be transferred to the wheels until the vehicle begins moving. The clutch also must be disengaged during shifting, or damage to the components of the transmission will result. The basic operation of a clutch is very simple. A friction disc is sandwiched between two driving discs. When the clutch pedal is pressed down, one driving disc is forced away from the other. This frees the friction disc, which is connected to the transmission input shaft. This allows the input shaft to stop rotating while the engine can continue to run. When the clutch pedal is gradually raised, the two driving discs are allowed to slowly come together again. As they contact the friction disc, the input shaft begins to turn. This quickly brings the rotation speed of the friction disc to the same speed as the driving discs. The driving discs used in clutch systems are the flywheel, which is bolted to the engine crankshaft, the pressure plate, which mounts to the flywheel, and the clutch disc, which is the friction element that is sandwiched between them. While these are the main components of the clutch, there are several other parts that are essential in the operation of this system. Let's look at each of these parts and the role they play in the operation of the clutch. The foundation of the clutch is the flywheel. Its smooth surface must be free of irregularities, or clutch concerns can result. The next component of the clutch system is the clutch disc. Friction material is bonded and riveted to both sides of the clutch disc. In the center of the disc are splines that connect it to the transmission output shaft. There are also dampening springs built into the disc to help smooth out engine pulsation. The pressure plate is the other driving disc of the clutch assembly. It applies and releases the clutch disc during engagement and disengagement. When the driver disengages the clutch by pressing down the pedal, the pressure plate is forced away from the flywheel, releasing the clutch disc. When the pedal is raised, the pressure plate is forced back against the clutch disc and flywheel by a strong return spring. The component that does the work of moving the pressure plate is the release bearing. This lubed-for-life bearing presses against the diaphragm spring fingers of the pressure plate, forcing the pressure plate away from the flywheel and releasing the clutch disc. Another bearing used on some vehicles is the pilot bearing. It is located in the center of the flywheel or in the end of the crankshaft. The pilot bearing supports the input shaft of the transmission and allows the crankshaft to rotate around the input shaft without turning it when the clutch is disengaged. The linkage between the clutch pedal and the release bearing is another important feature of the clutch. Ford uses cable and self-adjuster or hydraulic linkages to allow the clutch pedal to control the release bearing.